That was Donald Trump yesterday saying, incorrectly, that he can't testify in his hush money trial in New York because he's under a gag order. He checked with his lawyer, who told him the wrong information, perhaps a pattern there. And Donald Trump didn't just say it there in that little impromptu press conference. He said it over and over and over again in interviews, in rallies. He kept saying it. Now, it's not true. It's been debunked, as we will show you. Even Donald Trump later went on to debunk that, but he was very convinced of it in the morning. So let's start off with CNN's David Dale, who often does fact checks of Donald Trump. Here he is talking about what the gag order actually stops and what it does not stop in terms of Donald Trump's speech.
This false claim, this lie, is part of a pattern of former President Trump grossly exaggerating what the gag order actually says. He said at a campaign rally yesterday that because of the gag order, he shouldn't even be talking to you, his audience. The gag order does nothing to prevent him from speaking to political audiences, from delivering social media posts about politics and policy, from speaking to the media. It does not prevent him from attacking the judge, the district attorney, prosecuting this case, President Biden, his political opponents. It is narrowly restricted. It is tailored to 3 specific kinds of speech. He cannot talk about jurors in this case. He cannot talk about a reasonably foreseeable witnesses in this case with the specific intention of interfering with their participation in the case. And he can't talk about court staff or their families, junior prosecutors or their families, and so on. So this claim that the gag order means he can't testify, it just conjured out of thin air.
It is totally inaccurate. And eventually, I guess he came to understand that because he said this.
No, it won't stop me from testifying. The gag order is not to testify. The gag order stops me from talking about people and responding when they say things about me. We have people saying things about me and I'm not allowed to respond.
It's basically like a Gollum and Smeagol thing. Like, I don't know which brain is driving the body in any given time, but he landed on the correct position, which was that it does not stop him from testifying. But he sure did seem to like the idea that it would stop him. And I think that a lot of people can kind of come up with a possible explanation as to why. Bear in mind that before the trial started, he stated, "I'm testifying." And then last week he said, "if it's necessary." And then this week he said, "that thing that doesn't stop me from testifying is gonna stop me from testifying." It almost seems like he doesn't actually want to testify, and that it's a lot easier to be bold and say you will. It's harder to actually do it. And if this seems like a pattern for Donald Trump, I think that it kind of is. He previously said that he would testify before the January 6th committee's inquiry, the E. Jean Carroll rape trial, the New York City fraud trial, and in none of those cases did he actually testify. And in the same way, he loves to talk about how much he loves to debate and how great of a debater he is. And he went this entire Republican primary without doing that. And there's no guarantee that he's even gonna debate Joe Biden. And so this guy seems like he does not have much confidence in his ability to communicate. That is my theory, that this is why he was pretending the gag order would block him. Now, this morning on the Damage Report, Brett Ehrlich had a different theory. He thought that Donald Trump honestly thought that it blocked him, and he thought that because his lawyers had told him that, hoping that he wouldn't testify. I think that both are interesting theories, but Cenk, what do you make of all this?
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. So I think that he says both things, as a lot of politicians, they usually just do it more subtly than Donald Trump just did and often does, because he wants his followers to be able to pick from either. So right now, if you go on social media, as I have, you'll see tons and tons of MAGA people saying that, oh yeah, he can't testify because of the gag order. Oh, you guys are being so unfair. When he gets on the court, on the witness stand, he can't say on the advice of counsel, blah, blah, blah. Okay, even Donald Trump has said that is not true, but he gave them an opportunity to say, oh, he said it, so it must be true, right? But then for the people who know he's lying, that are MAGA, they get to say, oh, no, he said later that he could testify. You guys are being unfair to him. You see that? So either way, he's covered.
Yeah.
But what you need to execute that is a cult that's gonna cover for you when you say 2 contradictory things at the same time. Like, because most rational people would go, yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't say both of those things at the same time. But if you're talking to irrational people, they're like, yes, I want to hear this one. Another one goes, I want to hear that one. And they just pick and choose. And look, to be fair to Trump, the sophisticated way of doing that was Barack Obama. He would always tell you what you wanted to hear. And he would say it in such clever, well-crafted language that you would think he's really on your side. Best example was that after the Egyptian revolution, he gave a speech about how Hosni Mubarak was a valued ally of the United States for decades and we appreciate him. And the revolution against him inspires him because what a wonderful democratic impulse from the young. And if you weren't paying close attention, since he didn't say those two things right next to one another, you would have thought, God bless Mubarak, who's helping this revolution against them. Okay, so that's what politicians do. Now, in terms of the actual case here, Trump has said 1,000 times that he was going to testify, not just in this case, in almost every case. So MAGA guys, okay, pick and choose, but really, like, every time he says he's got all the evidence in the world and he's going to go prove it himself because he's the biggest, toughest, baddest guy there is, and literally every single time he backs out. He goes, I was going to testify. I was going to testify. But you see, what had happened was the dog ate my homework. I crapped my pants. I fell asleep. Next thing you know, even though I'm such a hero and I have all the evidence, I don't want to share any of it. And oh, golly gee, did I lose? Everything is rigged against me. Brother, nothing's rigged against you. Get on the goddamn stand. MAGA, isn't there any of you who like actually want a tough guy? Not a fake, pudding soft, orange marshmallow guy who actually does, like, for not in this case, but in the cases where the whole issue of whether the election was stolen or not is the main event. Don't you want him to get up there and show the Kraken and the mules? He can ride in on one of those 2,000 mules and prove his case. But he's not going to because he's guilty. Come on, guys, how could you not see that? You'd have to be the blindest person in the world not to see that. And then finally, just a bit of context here. Donald Trump has been involved in 4,000 cases throughout his lifetime. And he brings the great majority of them. So now he's complaining like, oh, can you believe they're using the legal system as lawfare? It's again projection. That's what Donald Trump has been doing his whole life. He sues people to intimidate them and to either give him a settlement number or to get them to back down from doing something. But when they don't, when they call his bluff, almost all the time, right before he's about to be deposed, he pulls out of the case. Because he's always bluffing. He never has any evidence. He was using it as lawfare against his opponents. So now for the first time in his life, this spoiled little brat is being held accountable and he's crying every day. And unfortunately, MAGA, which could have been an interesting populist movement, a lot of them are crying along with him like, oh my God, we're the special victims. I mean, Donald Trump has only sued people thousands of times. I can't believe anybody's using the law against him. Come on, guys. He's never gonna testify because he's an obvious gargantuan liar. Everyone knows. If you don't acknowledge that, you look super silly. David.
I think, look, I agree with most of what Jen said, and that is, I think Donald Trump has actually not made up his mind yet about whether he's going to testify. I think he wants to sort of ride this out and see how the trial goes, and then maybe wake up on the day when he's got the opportunity to testify and decide, no, I don't want to do this, or he wants to do it. But he's muddying the waters now. He's essentially creating a cover so that if he does decide, based on his lawyer's advice, that it would be really stupid to testify, at least now he's planted the seed in his supporter's mind, and he can then go back and say, see, I was not allowed to testify because of the gag order, even though he's already contradicted that, even though that's total nonsense, but he has planted this in the MAGA world minds. And there are enough maniacs out there in that world who don't know anything about criminal procedure unless they've actually been charged with a crime themselves, and maybe there's a sufficient number of those. But for everybody else, they don't understand how trials work. They don't understand how criminal litigation works. And so, but they believe everything Donald Trump says. So look for a couple weeks down the road if Donald Trump decides not to testify a few days later to say, they would not give me an opportunity to testify because of the gag order. And it's confusing enough to his supporters that several of them will believe it, and mission accomplished for Donald Trump.
Well, and I think related to that, what he'll get out of doing that is they love to say, we didn't get a chance to make our case. They use that in every one of these. They never got the chance. They could have taken the chance, but they didn't, and they love that. I think there's zero chance that he will testify, and I think that that's too bad. I think I would love to see him testify because, you grow up watching movies like A Few Good Men, where there's like this great lawyer has someone on the stand and breaks them down, and they just confess. They just blurt out what they did, and it's not realistic. That never happens. But I think with Trump it could. I feel like he's the sort of person that you could get him to confess to horrible things on the stand.
Oh, there's no question. Oh my God, if I got to cross-examine Trump or debate Trump, he would admit almost everything. It's so easy to get him to do it. Now, guys, again, Matt, look, I know there's a popular swing of MAGA. Sometimes I talk to them in a blind hope that they'll listen, right? But guys, if his lawyers always tell him don't testify, there could be other reasons, but the number one reason why they tell him not to testify is because he's guilty. Yeah. So when they say, hey, you said that this was for this business transaction was for this reason, but look at all the mountain of evidence that shows that it was actually for the hush money, right? What's he gonna say?
Yeah.
He's gonna, he has no answer for that because he actually did do it, right? So the only thing he could do is either accidentally admit it or come up with a preposterous lie.
Yeah.
In which case he not only loses credibility with the jury, but opens himself up to further perjury charges.
Yeah, and let's also bear in mind, there's the evidence he could potentially reveal, what he could potentially admit to, and there's also just the likelihood that he would make himself look terrible in front of the jury. Like he would make himself look vindictive and hateful and spiteful. He would call Stormy Daniels horse face on the stand. Like he could do a lot of damage without even admitting to anything.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.